told yourself, I'm just taking a break. But deep down, you know you are avoiding something really important. My name is Elyssa Smith. I'm a trauma informed life strategist. And in today's episode of Unlock Your Blocks, I'm going to walk you through how survival mode can dress up as self care and then how to tell the difference so that you can rest without guilt and act without fear. So let's talk about why this happens. How is it that sometimes holding back and pulling back feels like self care, but also it can be sabotage? Why does that sabotage start? So, if you ever got the message in childhood that it was safer to stop short of success, failure, your full potential, rather than go into something unknown, something scary, something that where you might get rejected, your system would have developed and adapt self-sabotage looking techniques for keeping you safe. What I mean by this is when your nervous system senses that there is danger of getting eaten by a wild animal, it will absolutely put in all the brakes, put on all the stops so that you don't go into that scenario that could expose you to that. But the problem is your nervous system, your sympathetic nervous system, your amygdala, all the different things that are a part of your survival system cannot tell the difference between I just have this project that's due or I actually am getting eaten by a wild animal if I don't do this right. So it believes that if you risk rejection, if you risk the unknown, that you are going to get kicked out of the herd, you're going to be abandoned, and you're going to get picked off by a wild animal, picked off by a predator. So it escalates quickly, and that part of our system is very, very primal. It just looks at all stress as the same. And if in childhood you learned that if you did proceed with a big project and you didn't do well on it, you might have evidence from your childhood that says, yeah, you're going to be rejected. You're going to have your emotional needs go unmet. You're going to maybe even have, God forbid, physical needs unmet if you don't perform at a certain level. So, what your system is screaming for then, as you are trying to crank out a project, be productive, go after your dreams. This doesn't even have to be anything that's intrinsically scary. It could be that your system believes it's not safe to pursue your dream. It's not safe to pursue something that brings so much joy. It's always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So, whatever it is that your body has perceived might be unsafe when you are pursuing that thing, it'll feel better to take a break than to move forward. Now, am I saying don't take breaks? Please don't take that away from don't stop the podcast right here. Don't stop the episode right here because I am not saying don't take breaks. In fact, what you'll hear most of the time from me is you need more breaks. But we have to have informed breaks. We have to notice, when am I stopping myself short of something that is good for me versus when am I taking a break to avoid something that is actually going to be harmful, or taking a break because we think that the outcome could be dangerous or unsafe. Now, you probably aren't thinking in your mind like, oh, I really want to watch that show right now instead of finishing this project because this project feels unsafe. That's probably not cognitively what you're thinking. You might just notice that you have a sudden hankering to go fold the laundry instead of finish the thing at hand. You might just notice that you suddenly want a nap in the very worst way. I have one client, God bless her. She always tells me when it's happening during a session, but she'll be like, I noticed how tired I got and I just started yawning when this thing happened yesterday. And I realized that's how my system deals with triggers. So oftentimes we will feel this drive to take a break and stop because our system is screeching to a halt because it doesn't know what's around the corner or because it's afraid that rejection is around the corner. Or, I just spoke at a conference and one of the people in the audience, she was so self-aware. She said, I'm actually afraid of success. I'm actually afraid that if I succeed, what does that mean about me? What does it mean I'll have to keep up if I get to this level? What kind of vulnerability and exposure does that put me in? So if we're stopping ourselves in the name of self-care, using air quotes, if we are pausing for the wrong reasons rather than for the right reasons, it is just as harmful as never pausing at all. It causes us not to be able to follow our dreams. It causes us to quit when we are feeling vulnerable. I can't tell you how many times I see this in really, I don't even want to say powerful women, but women who really are going for it. Women who are high up executives or people who have their own businesses, this kind of thing. We are really prone, especially the higher you go in a company or the more you succeed in your company, the more you are seen and the potential for rejection gets greater. So Maybe you develop something where you are succeeding and going after it and being productive in the areas that you know you can do dominate. But then in the areas where you're not sure, or maybe in the areas that are a little more passion driven rather than results driven, it feels too scary. And so it's like, I'm just going to pause on that because I don't have enough time. Let me know if you've ever, in the comments, if you've ever thought that, like, oh, I just don't have enough time. Because a lot of times when we don't have enough time, it's because we are purposely, subliminally purposely, like your system is probably doing this without you realizing it, over scheduling ourselves so that we don't have time to do anything but the stuff that has to do with the bottom line. We're taking the possibility away of pursuing our passions because it feels too scary. And your system says, nope, pause. I need a nap. I need a break. I want to watch my show. And it's kind of like the difference of being able to tell between I am maybe you're working out or something, and it's like, this is creating a sensation of pain, but it's the kind of pain that makes me stronger. It's like sore muscles, and those muscles bring all of the blood flow and all of the repairing cells in the body to those muscles, and then the muscles get stronger, and that it's sore in the process. It's kind of like healing. I've had this sprained ankle for several weeks, and it's like, okay, so there's some soreness that's to be expected. There's a little discomfort as I'm doing my physical therapy, but that's different than when I first injured it. This soreness is different than an injury. So if you're working out and you get sore, that's not a problem, but it can feel like a problem. It can feel like this is really not okay and I can't move the next day and I should never do that again. But if you're aware of the difference between the types of pain, the pain that makes you stronger versus the pain that takes you out, that's where it gets really juicy when you're looking at, when do I take a break? How do I not just push through pain, but how do I also not stop myself short of the victory? So, the results of having this pattern of stopping yourself and doing self-care, again, I'm using air quotes because self-care, it can be so overused, and a lot of times we're looking at, oh, okay, taking breaks is always good as overachievers. But if you're taking a break, or if you're not having an experience in your life because you don't feel ready for it, you don't feel good enough, you feel like you're going to be too exposed, you're too vulnerable. Sometimes that's the case, but if you shut down every time and you go take a nap, you go watch your show, then you are not going to be fully embodied in your life and in your aspirations. You're not going to be aligned fully with the things that you're doing because your true self cannot function on only doing things when it feels comfortable to do them. Again, please don't hear me saying push through pain. I am a huge proponent of taking lots of breaks and slowing down so your system can keep up with you. You got to acclimate at every new level of success, every new level of effort. But what this can look like when it's actually harming you is you might start a bunch of projects and never finish. Passion projects, even things that really mean something to you. Maybe you keep trying to start that side hustle business. Maybe you keep starting a book and you can't get through it, because it doesn't feel safe to rest. So you're saying, oh, I'll just take a break, or I'm too busy to do that. It's allowing distractions that are not taking care of you. Now, I'm a huge fan of pausing. Like, I'm a huge fan of watching comedy, watch your favorite show when it is the right time to take a break. But if you're constantly craving those things when something is challenging for you to focus on because of this outcome, gosh, it might not be safe, then those pauses, those breaks are not taking care of you. Another way that you can see this in action is if you are checking out instead of checking in, if you are distracting yourself, if your self-care, again, the air quotes, is looking like I'm zoning out and binging my show and that wasn't on purpose. I'm a huge fan of binging a show, for a day or a week or something. You just want to get through and know what happens with all your favorite characters. But if you do it unintentionally, if you're not setting out to have a binge day and that's what ends up happening instead of the stuff that you plan to do, that's how you know that, yes, that looks like self-care, but it's actually a technique that your system is using to keep you from progressing in an area that it might not feel safe. So what do we do about this? So number one, the first thing you need to do is to assess the places where you are feeling exhausted, maybe taking a needed break, or you might be taking a needed break, or are you sabotaging your progress? Are you experiencing protective burnout? That's what I call it, when our bodies start to burn out because it wants you to just stop at all costs. It does not want you to go into that area that feels unsafe. So it will cause the feelings and sensations and chemicals in your body of burnout so that you don't progress into an area it doesn't feel comfortable with. So you have to assess all those places. Where are you feeling burnout? Where are you feeling lack of motivation? What does it look like when you're feeling exhausted? Are you checking in with yourself? Are you pouring into yourself in those moments? Or are you just conveniently distracting yourself with a show or going to take a nap and sleep it off? And then you don't ever come back to the thing that really mattered to you in the beginning. The second thing you have to do after you assess all those places is to really calm your system in the moment. I love to use my 3S framework for this: safety, self care, and self nurturing. The safety piece in particular, which is 3 deep breaths to help your system know that you're actually in a safe place. You're not being chased by a wild animal. You're not in danger of getting kicked out of the tribe and siphoned off by a predator. You can ask yourself in that moment of calm, take your deep breaths, and then you ask, what feels unsafe about being productive in this area or moving forward in this area? And maybe if you're one of my journaling gals, you can journal it out, whatever you want to do. But if you stop and ask yourself what feels safe, it can really help you figure out, am I taking a really needed self care break, or am I sabotaging my forward motion? The third thing is you really have to uncover the root of where this comes from. Why is it that that thing feels unsafe? Historically speaking, what happened? What was the wiring when you were little that made you feel safer stopping yourself and taking breaks when actually it's going to be a good, healthy thing for you to move forward gently in the direction of progress? So, if you learned at a certain time in childhood that it wasn't safe to move forward with something that feels vulnerable, you need to ask yourself, where did I learn that? Who taught me that? Did I see that example in a caregiver? Did I get told that you're not allowed to do things? One of the other things from the conference this past weekend, it was a conference for people who sew. And one of the women said that her mom, when she was little, told her that sewing and artistic expression, making, doing crafts, was not a worthwhile way to spend her time. So if she saw her doing it, she would give her something else, quote, more productive to do. And so she had to make sure everything else was done before she, quote, wasted her time on her sewing. And this is something that still weighs on her as an adult. So if you learned that it's not okay to follow your dreams and follow your heart, it can feel very unsafe as an adult to try and do that. So you might overschedule yourself. You might take too many breaks to actually finish the thing that lights you up. So we have to look at, where did the root come from? Who told you, who showed you that this wasn't safe? And then the final step of this process is to rewire those pathways of those limiting beliefs that started in the first place by creating an environment of safety around yourself. This means the way you're thinking. You don't want to let that negative self talk take over. You don't want to let the imposter syndrome dominate the day. You got to help your inner critic see that you're actually going to be safe. You're going to take care of yourself, and you don't need her help criticizing you at every moment. You don't need your system to shut down just when you're starting to gain momentum. So you create an environment of safety with nervous system regulation and other tools, and then your system won't try and stop you. It'll just be very authentic. Oh, I need a break. My system needs a break. I'll go do something. I'll check in with myself, do some self care, and then you come right back and you make your forward progress. So I hope that's really helpful for you. You can always book a 15-minute free chat with me if you're a woman and you want help figuring out what are the roots of these beliefs that set you up to be sabotaging as an adult. And we can absolutely uncover what those are and uproot them together. So if you want to book that 15-minute session with me, you can head to the link. It's elyssasmith.com/focus. You can see it at the end. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see it pop up at the end, or you can see it in the show notes if you're listening, which is just the audio. So I hope this is helpful for you. And until the next time I see you, take such good care.